Hello, I am the owner of the Not Safe for Work Twitter account named Thenachowithshame. On this 16th of September, Twitter used @Rotic made a post. This post, regarding two other members of the Murder Drones fandom. These two specific individuals are especially fond of the envy ship. The one shown on the right, @Kenshin has indeed shown aggressive behaviors towards Glitch Productions, of all people, after episode 6 Dead End aired. I am not certain of any other offenses this individual might have on their record, and as such I have nothing else to say about them. However, things went a whole different, much darker path with the artist on the left. VNVN, otherwise known as Olga. But certainly not the way you might think. Following the initial post by Rotic, I actually agreed with them, although briefly, by sending a TF2 meme expressing my disbelief. That reply was deleted by myself after I had a change of mind, which was not the brightest choice, I know, and admit it. The reason I deleted my post showing agreement was because Olga actually started an effort to try and amend things. In here I am showing the images you can find on her profile. These images show her writing explaining how she feels about the situation, how she admits that she made mistakes, apologizes for making them, and promises to make amends. I see that a lot of people do not understand just how unusual this is across the internet. She could have slipped this whole situation under the rug, not give a damn about everyone's opinions, and continued with her life as if nothing had happened. Instead, she's trying to improve as a person, as a user, and a Murder Drones fan. This was the catalyst that made me sit down and think. As I thought about the situation, I made myself some questions. For starters, how did Rotic even get to know Olga's alleged age if Olga herself never publicly stated it? That simple question was everything that anyone with a functioning brain would need to go and actually ask. This is where everything went to complete shit. I asked Rotic about that very specific and very shady detail that literally no one else was asking about, and they replied with this. Take a moment to read it. Not only did they not answer my question, they also pretty much stated that someone else that no one in the fandom knows about, since Rotic refused to specify who informed them, has a very personal part of information about Olga that she herself never told to anyone. As I finished writing my reply to this bafflingly bad attempt at avoiding my very simple question, I found out that my reply couldn't be sent. I thought to myself, they wouldn't. They are a talented artist that everyone knows and cares about. They wouldn't be able to just put themselves in line like this. They blocked me. Prior to this very specific interaction, we've never had a problem. Ever. I liked many of their posts, and even respected them as an artist. Only after I questioned the veracity of their claims towards Olga did they immediately cut any way I had of properly communicating with them, and hence to try and solve this problem in an effective, beneficial way. After finding myself in front of a door shut right in my face, I understood that things were far more contrived than they seemed. This is when I decided to try and make this situation known via a thread. My thread can be found in my profile, marked with the murder drones hashtag. In there I write everything that I've said in this video up to now. How Olga is trying to make amends, when I asked Rotic about the source of their claims, and when they blocked me. The thread ends with me clarifying a couple things, such as the fact that I screenshotted the entire thread before even posting it in case my account gets downed. A supposition about Rotic deleting my initial reply, which is wrong since it's still there on the original callout post. And another post I made half an hour later, questioning how Rotic answered a question I made to another user, VN, who gave info that just did not add up. VN's post has since been deleted. Does that not raise any eyebrows? Now reached this point I have made a post, the one pinned on my profile, explaining my view on minors creating not safe for work content. I know for a fact that Rotic read it, since they started using it to try and push a narrative of me being somehow the bad guy, omitting crucial information that I had stated on said post, and talking about me in a way that obviously will lead their viewers to think I'm some kind of creep. I will read the text I wrote about the subject now. In all fandoms, minors drawing not safe for work content is seen as something bad, although I have something different to say about that. I actually think people from the range of 14 to 17 years of age, but not below, are perfectly free to draw suggestive/sexual content, and they should be encouraged to do so. We've all been teenagers. Unless you've grown as Aroe or Aroase, or had some kind of trauma or other condition I'm not aware of, every human being eventually gets to know and explore their own sexual urges. It's a psychological process that builds a foundation for us to mature as individuals. I know this because I myself started to draw suggestive content when I was 15, and even publishing it freely on DeviantArt, when it was still an art platform. Rest in peace, DeviantArt. Nobody cared about my age, and I certainly did not care about anyone else's. We just appreciated the content we made for each other. I've done requests for total strangers, and not once did I feel threatened or discomforted. In fact, I was actually really happy to have a group of fellow illustrators to share my tastes with. Tastes that I thought were unique to me. So seeing that there was an entire community dedicated to my fetish, BDSM, was refreshing and gave me a whole different perspective on life. Of course, not that my perspective on life was too broad since I was still a teenager, but I think you can get the point. I was not a degenerate. I was not a lost cause. I was a human that was experiencing new feelings, thoughts, and actions. Those feelings made me understand that I had to control myself and how I must do so. Those thoughts marked the way I think now and how I face the world. Those actions made me realize the bad way that everything has consequences, and that you have to measure yourself not to cause bad things to good people. Those feelings, thoughts, and actions that were fully related to sexuality were a part of my overall psychological development, full of other things that had nothing to do with sexuality, but everything complemented itself. The mind is a storm that catches it all. It's only when it settles down that things start to make sense. Of course, this is not an excuse to leave anyone in the middle of such a development unattended. Teenagers lack a lot of the morals learned and accepted in adulthood, and as such are prone to make massive fuck-ups. However, it's the significant, but in the end small and harmless mistakes that one must go through in order to learn. This includes the ones related to sexuality. What I'm trying to say is this. As long as there is no clear danger towards the well-being of anyone, a teenager should be encouraged to explore their sexuality in the most valuable years of their development as a person. In this era of widespread technology and creative freedom, I personally find unfair to treat, for example, 16-year-olds the same way anyone would towards an actual child, which I consider to be 12-year-olds and below. Legal age of consent and mental age are completely different concepts. The 18-year mark is a social threshold, not a natural switch that makes you a fully fledged adult the very second you reach it. It is your right to disagree if you feel like it's necessary. Just don't throw shit at me for saying this. I am speaking from the personal experience of my own life, so I can and actually might be wrong about a lot of people. But I know that I am right about at least some of the 6 billion human inhabitants this world has. If you see me interacting with a not safe for work account run by a minor, you know why I'm doing it. This was an actual argument in which I poured my best efforts to make as easy to understand and to think about as possible. I clarified what I thought was needed to be clarified and made important differences between subjects that had nothing to do with each other. But of course, anger does blur the view of anyone. And I choose to think that Rotic is actually capable of understanding these concepts, but is blinded by an irrational anger towards someone who is just trying to solve an unnecessary problem. By this point I went to sleep. Rotic seemed to stop throwing fuel at the fire as well, making one last post before trying to move on. If you reach this part of the video, you'll surely understand why am I doing this and why I am not willing to stop. My goal is not to throw Rotic down. My goal is not to fulfill a grudge of some kind. My goal is not to put Rotic's life in danger. I just want them to come out and give some kind of evidence that everyone can see, analyze, and judge. You know, the one they should have given from the very fucking beginning. If that by any chance ends up putting Rotic under a bad light, well, actions and the lack of have consequences. Rotic started this, and everything that happens beyond is up to them.